call the meetings, City Council special meeting to order on June 26, 2023 at 7:07. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Blanchett.
Here.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Here.
Councilmember Norton.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Robbins.
Here.
Mayor Swift.
Here.
Councilmember Workman.
Workman is excused. Any time for public comment in relation to address the mayor and council? Do I need to finish the speech? Okay. Seeing none. 4.1, adopt resolution to schedule a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments on the establishment of a Public Act 33 Police Protection Public Safety Special Assessment. And I think, well, before we look for a motion, and just so most people know what we're talking about, I will read the background if you guys are fine with that. According to the deficit elimination plan that was filed by the city on February 7th, 2023, and approved by the State of Michigan Department of Treasury on February 23rd, 2023, revenue transfers from the Riverview Land Preserve to the City Council's general fund will be reduced eventually and eliminated in accordance with the approved deficit elimination plan. This result is in need of additional revenues to be brought into the general fund. The city's public safety department represents 52.9% of the 31.8 cents of every tax dollar the city collects in property taxes. Under the Police and Fire Protection Act 33 of 1951, the city, as a qualified city, is permitted to raise revenue for police protection through the creation of a special assessment district that is applicable citywide. On June 19th, 2023, the City Council, pursuant to the city's charter and ordinances, set forth in its intent to undertake special assessment of the special assessment for police protection for the Riverview Police Department to raise revenue, and authorized and directed the city manager to prepare cost estimates for the police special assessment for the City of Riverview Police Department. The cost estimates for the police special assessment for the Riverview Police Department have been prepared and shared with City Council. For purposes of funding these costs and expenses, the City Council has directed the city manager to create a special assessment district pursuant to Michigan Public Act 33 of 1951 as amended, against which the estimated costs and expenses will be assessed. The special assessment district will encompass all lots and parcels of land located within the city of Riverview. A public hearing must be held to allow comments on the estimated costs and the creation of the special assessment district. Basically, action requested, the council is requested to adopt a resolution to schedule a public hearing for the purposes of receiving comments on the special assessment of Public Act 33 Police Protection Public Safety Special Assessment District. Job.
So, Your Honor, I know that this really goes back to the Plant Moran study of the 5-year plan, and they provided a few options because doing nothing would deplete the general fund completely in 3 years. So based on the Riverview Land Preserve and its diminishing transfers to the general fund, this is really the start of weaning the city of Riverview off the land preserve. You know, we talked about options of a public safety millage or assessment. We talked about a Headley rollback. There's other, you know, there's not too many different options because, you know, like the assessment is 10 years. Headley, we wouldn't get 10 years before it would get reduced back to the rolls. So it's really, I guess for a lack of a better term, we're going to make a line in the sand and not kick the can down the road. This is kind of the time of, hey, let's address this, let's get it fixed, and then let's live inside our budget that we're trying to live inside. So I think it's important to address it as soon as possible. That's my job as a city manager, to make recommendations to the council and mayor, the legislators of the city, to say, hey, this is coming, what do you want to do? You know, I've said it before, and I'm not the guy to decimate the city, you know, in 3 years of, you know, not having funds to have what I call, what do I call it, Mayor, at all the meetings? I call Riverview, Downriver's biggest little city. And so I want to, you know, keep it strong and viable. And I do know that there's other revenues coming in someday, but I want to not miss a beat. I want to be able to replace police cars and equipment and ambulances and you know, I know that some council people have asked me and other people have asked me, said, well, is police, well, we already have the fire for 1.47 mils, but, you know, I kind of explained it as, hey, it's a general fund, so if we don't pay the police department, that leaves us funds to pay other general fund expenses. So that's kind of the idea, and, you know, we'll have room for growth of, you know, employees' careers and growth potentials and compensation in this very tough labor market of hiring and keeping good staff. And so I just think, you know, we have to do something, and I think, you know, the sooner the better, so.
Oh, Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, to Joe, when it says eventually eliminated, we're talking, didn't you say 2025? The general fund will be reduced and eventually eliminated in
Yeah.
accordance with.
The transfers.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
next year, there's the transfer, that's why
It's 20. that's
24,
part
25.
of this budget.
And then 25, it's going away, so, but if you wait and it doesn't go through, what do you do?
Yep.
What do you do? And in all fairness, there will, you know, there'll have to be an education and information campaign. It can't be a propaganda campaign, but it's gotta say, hey, did you know? I mean, I like what Council Member Ganaga said, you know, it's gotta be one of those, did you know what is paid for police and police cars and personnel?
So, but in 2025, from there until the closure of the landfill, there will be no funds transferred.
Correct. There's no scheduled transfers of funds.
Right. And the reason for that is, elaborate.
Well, so the landfill needs to fill, it needs to replenish its escrow accounts and its post-closure and financial assurance accounts. It's no secret, it was on a council agenda that the state changed the inflation factor and the cost factor, and we have some $20 million, $23 million in our post-closure fund. They said we need 33. We don't have $13 million sitting in a fund, and so we had to go out for a letter of credit that says, hey, if you mismanage a landfill or you're doing something bad and they gotta close it down, it's gonna take the $33 million over the next 30 years to keep it in good standing. So we have to have that financial instrument in place, so, and we're required by law. So it's a letter of credit, and that letter of credit is not cheap. I don't know what the last basis points is. When we started negotiating it a year ago, it was at 45 or 50. I think it's 60, could almost be 65 with the interest rates going up. And we have to pay that payment quarterly, which could be 40 to 50,000 a quarter based on my calculations. So I want to start filling our funds so we can use that extra 50,000 or 40,000 per quarter on city services. So that's my goal. So, and again, you're the legislature, I understand that. This is, you know, a big thing for the legislators, I get it, but we gotta do something. And it's gonna have to be, something's gonna have to be done.
So I think maybe to Councilman Norton's point is, those accounts have to be replenished, and I'm sure one of them has to be the capital improvements account for the landfill, any maintenance done to the hill, or I'm sure we're gonna need some equipment in the next few years. So all that would come from the landfill funds, not from the general fund.
Correct. It needs to take care of itself. It has to be self-supportive, it has to be self-funded. I mean, if you make a break, it's not like it's gonna go back there. It's gotta handle and do its own, so.
So and I think just one more follow-up is, let's say we do better with better than the expected royalties from the landfill. Could this, does those additional funds, if it's more than 400,000, come to the general fund, or does all that stuff stay in the
Well,
landfill?
currently, the trust, the OPEB trust, and the agreement for the royalties say that the royalties go in their net of expense. So
Okay.
we'd have to figure out what that actually means, and it could be modified, it could be, and that's the thing about the public safety assessment, it's each year. It would be up to so many mills per year. If we find ourselves in a good position, then we could reduce that assessment, right? I mean, it's not a guaranteed so many mills per year, because each year, when we go through the tax rolls and we do our assessments annually, council has to vote for the assessments. So what you would do is say, okay, Jeff, how'd you prepare the budget, or city manager, or whomever, how'd you prepare the budget, and how many mills do we need? Based on our capital outlay, based on, the real goal is let's get our house in order and then see what, and schedule properly and account properly and record, however we want to do it, and do it in a 3-year vision or a 5-year vision, rather than, oh my gosh, both ambulances broke in half, now what do we do? We have to do a little bit better communicating and planning so that we can know exactly where we're at, so that we don't get surprised. There always will be surprises, things break, right? Things cost more, things break, but boy, if we can limit that to, instead of thinking that everything's needed all at once, that becomes difficult.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
In the past, did we, a lot of these expenses for the police department, such as the motor vehicles, apparatus, equipment, did we not pay for a lot of those with the DEA fund,
You
correct?
did.
And we no
did.
longer have
Yes.
that?
So my plan with the additional police is not only, got to call into the school board, I'd love to get a police person back at the high school and share the cost, or cut it somewhere, and also another police officer at the airport. Those are my two, I'm not a police expert, but those two things make a lot of sense to me as even a financial person. So that's really I've already reached
I
out.
think the school is just common sense.
Well, it is.
I reached out already to
Yeah,
JJ.
it
He hasn't
is.
called me back yet,
Yeah.
but I've reached out and said, hey, how can we make this work? I know it was budgetary, I think, when it did happen and they
Right.
pulled them out, but hey, look, what's going on in the world today, I think
Yeah.
one of Riverview's police officers
It
should
just
be
makes
at the high
way too
school.
much sense, yes. And same
So-
thing with getting an officer back at the airport.
Absolutely.
We made a
Never should
mistake by pulling that
have
back.
left, yep.
Absolutely. So, it gives us some flexibility to do those kind of things too. And, I don't know any other way. I mean, I talked with Plant Moran, and this was one, the Headley rollback was two. They didn't have a lot of big-time options for us. So
Route
those were the two,
options.
and,
But what does buy us time is the sale of the cell tower, the property will
it
buy us
does,
some time.
it does. I mean, we've got to talk about that property at the golf course, like it was brought up. Do we want to put it out now? Because we've not listed, we retract that. We've posed the property to some developers to get their take and what their questions would be on there. So I've got a list of questions now that I need to meet with Randy and Dave Skirdo and see if they're valid, some of these questions, because property could be worth more if X, or it could be worth more if Y, or could you, what can be done? And let's list it so that it's the most valuable way to list it. So, and do we want to list it before the vision, after the,
Which property are you talking about?
38 acres? The 9
Off of
acres
Sibley Road.
off Sibley at the golf
Across-
course. Yeah, across from,
the cemetery.
correct.
Have we entertained the idea of the property we bought for the Allen Road entrance?
Yeah, the thing that we looked at there was a potential strip mall, a little kind of development there. But, and it's gonna shock you when I tell you this, we also need the dirt from there. The dirt is in the millions for final cover and cap. We lucked out on the golf course side when they were building the Metro Airport. They needed a place to take all that dirt. They brought that dirt, trucked it to us, and we covered that whole east side of the driving range and hill with how many feet, Randy? You were around. Was it like 12 feet or something, 13 feet?
I was not around.
Oh,
You're
okay.
talking the golf course?
Yeah, the driving range, when they redid the
Oh,
driving
that.
range.
Oh,
Remember
that.
when they,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think 12.
I mean,
So So we really can't sell that property.
Right, because we need that dirt, we're kind of
Because when
holding
the
it for that
landfill
dirt.
closes, Riverview's gonna have a lake.
Yep,
I'm sorry, you said what?
A lake.
yeah, we already have a big pit right now, and.
Now we got a beach.
Now, the idea is to someday, if we want, to refill that, if we can find dirt, to put that back in there, but,
If I'm not, it's right next to the money tree.
I know, but I'm really, I'm trying to kind of prioritize the
Mhm.
issues, and I can get really bogged down when I think about all the issues that I have to try to solve
No,
in one
absolutely.
night. I get really bogged
Absolutely.
down, and I'm like, okay, which one do they want me to go after first?
So just to check that off, we need that land for the dirt.
We, absolutely, unless we find some big Amazon plants that, and we're always looking. So dirt is always a,
And that's not unreasonable, there's a lot of development going up in Romulus and
Yes,
the
there is.
area.
we have Jeff K's out all the time looking for dirt. We did get, we have been getting some good dirt, which is good, because we can, when it's clean. And when we talk about unclean dirt, we talk about impacted dirt.
Right.
1 PCB to like so many million tons or thousands of tons. We can get that, but that's to cover the trash. The clean dirt is final cap. It's kind of like, it's been tested and there's no impurities in that dirt,
Well,
so.
it's just a rumor, I don't know if it's true, but Kroger built that place in Romulus, and they're
Uh-huh.
looking to build another one.
I love to have that dirt. That dirt is awesome. So anyone hears about dirt, call me and I'll get Jeff K out there immediately, because, and this isn't today.
It's in
The
the
dirt
years.
need's gonna be in 10, 12 years, but,
Mhm.
let's put it on the list of, we need it. We're gonna need it.
Any further discussion, questions?
No, sir.
Then I'll look for a motion to adopt a resolution to schedule a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments on the establishment of a Public Act 33 Police Protection Public Safety Special Assessment.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Gannett O'Neill, supported by Councilwoman Blanchett. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Banaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
I don't need to read that resolution, do I? We don't have all night. Okay, 5-1, accept the city manager's cost estimate report for police public safety special assessment for the Riverview Police Department Public Safety. Should I read the background on that too? Just keep everybody happy here. Right, on 6/19/23, the city council authorized and directed the city manager to prepare cost estimates for the Riverview Police Department Public Safety Special Assessment for the Riverview Police Department Public Safety to raise revenue for the increasing costs of Riverview Police Department. These costs are directly related to personnel, operations, and capital outlay for police vehicles, apparatus, and equipment. The goal of the special assessment for Riverview Police Department Public Safety is to offset increasing personnel and operating costs supported by reduced general funds available for public safety. For purposes of funding these costs and expenses, the city council has directed the city manager to create a special assessment district pursuant to Michigan Public Act 33 of 1951, as amended, against which costs and expenses will be assessed. The special assessment district will encompass all lots, parcels located within the city of Riverview. Public hearing is to be convened by law to allow public comments on the estimated costs and creation of special assessment district. It is the city manager's recommendation that the total proportion of the cost be paid by special assessment for the period of 10 years and encompass all lots, parcels located within the city of Riverview. The cost estimate, $1.544 million, which is equal to 4 mills, is used for the purchasing of police motor vehicles, apparatus, and equipment, which said costs are to be defrayed by the special assessment on all lots, parcels located within the city of Riverview. Jeff?
Yes, Your Honor, this is purely a cost schedule that I compiled. It probably looks familiar because it came from next year's budget. And it was the other costs, the unfunded operational costs are the additional police officers, equipment, apparatus, capital outlay. I did work with the police chief on this. I didn't make this up. This was, he thought, real costs. So that's kind of how I get to the total. And then I subtract out the proposed millage, that leaves you the net. So the net cost of a fully funded upgraded and properly fitted police department would be $3.3 million.
We did have a resident ask, and that, obviously the resident is here.
Yes.
Any of this money for the special assistant be used for the wages and salaries and operations?
Correct. It can be done. It was vetted through legal, and it can be personnel. So it could actually add to it our additional officers at the schools, whatever shared costs that, I'd bring back to council from the school district, as well as the person at the airport. And this would get us to fully funded staff, too.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is 10 years, so if we're able to get that officer out at the airport, it's gonna probably take, correct me,
Half
you
of
two,
it.
half of that to start seeing it.
Yeah.
But as we start seeing it, we can back off of those. Could be possible.
Yeah, and again, it's to start.
Right.
And then we have to look year by year, where are the revenues in the city? I mean, what new businesses brought in, what new revenues to offset, what costs, then what is the gas plant doing? What is the landfill doing? I mean, are we now working at a point where the landfill is taking additional foreign trash and we're making an extra million or two? Well, that's another mill or 2 mills there, so you could potentially reduce that as well. So it's not set in stone that it's this certain amount of mills each year. That's the decision of
Correct.
council of how many mills that they want to assess based on the operation and the funding needs of the city. So I'm saying that at the beginning so we can get going. That's
Right,
my.
right. But I guess I'm looking to Councilwoman Blanchett and the mayor, that getting that officer back at the airport, that doesn't instantly come. It's about 4 or 5 years before the court cases even, no?
No,
No?
no.
It all depends how much the crime is, I guess.
Right,
You split it amongst
Yeah.
everyone who was involved.
right, all the
But
communities.
those funds just ended recently, correct? We got
Mhm.
within the last, and it's been quite a few years, and I know that.
I don't know what,
I don't know when the last time we got the money. I know we just spent the last of it.
Last of it,
she
right.
said.
when was the officer, what year, if you had to guess, what year would the officer been pulled out of the airport?
The year Bill Toll was on city council.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, it's
It-
true.
It was Sean, so, he was in the, I'm gonna say.
About 8 years
At
ago?
least 6 years ago.
Okay,
And I think the last of it, that we still had gotten a little bit, so it still
Yeah.
struggles through. It's how long it takes to go through
The whole
everything.
litigation. So.
Never should have happened.
Okay, any further discussion? And I'll look for a motion to accept the cost estimate report for the public safety special assessment for the city of Riverview Police Department.
So moved.
Pleasure.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Blanchett, supported by Councilwoman Ganaga. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Morton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Anything else council wants to bring up?
Mayor, before we
ahead.
go any further, if you don't mind Alyssa and Cindy talking amongst themselves, unless they've already figured it out, there's a little, as we discussed before, we're on a razor-thin schedule, and there's a lot that has to happen behind the scenes. Do we have a new date? Do we
Well,
have-
Jeff told me that he called the printer. and said
they
it'd
need
take
5 days.
5 days just for the printer, and then another 4
4
days
days for
for
mail.
postage.
It's 9
That's
days.
9 days.
And she said throw 1 extra day in there for
So that's-
buffer, so it's 10 days.
So there's no way the public notice can be sent out to all the taxpayers before the public meeting,
On the-
the public hearing on July 10th. There's absolutely no way.
So what's the
Okay.
next date we can do this? 17th?
We have 17th is already scheduled for. That's a regular council meeting
Mhm.
on Monday, the 17th.
So, we have
Can we
public
do it
hearings.
then?
So we're adopting another resolution for a notice of a public hearing for the second public hearing.
So that'd have to be
And we-
backed up.
So that would have to be backed up.
Mhm.
To get it on the November ballot, it has to
Mhm.
be to the clerk, the county
Our
clerk.
drop dead date is the 15th of August
Yeah.
for the county, right?
That's it.
Well, do we have to, or do we need to add a special meeting in there somewhere?
We already have one for July 31st.
Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor?
Go ahead.
I'm not trying to complicate this, but if we're pushing this hard, what was the reason to not do it in February when we have the
So-
presidential?
Yeah, and so my idea was the sooner the better. And a lot of people are going to turn out for a vote of the mayor and turn out for a vote of council this time. I would hope that they would do a presidential, but I think the turnout would be better for November versus February. But again, I'm not a politician, I won't know that, so.
Mr. Mayor, can I just be a devil's advocate here? I understand what you're saying, but if we're pushing this hard and we have one mix-up, then we miss that time anyways. And I think with what Council Member Ganaga said about education, that even gives us more time to educate.
Yeah, and just to your point, I have not brought back a plan of information, which I just want to bring an outline back, and I
Right.
want to have help to fill in the blanks, because it will take everybody on something like this. It's not a city manager
No,
and/or some
It's a team.
minor
Yeah,
PR
right.
group or whatever. It's everybody saying why we stand unified and in this, so.
And maybe through your chair to Mr. Pentiak, I mean, I understand you might not get as many people to come out, but when you're talking, number one, public safety, police, and you're talking millages, you might have a better turnout than what we think. You've been here long, you've dealt with this a lot more than us.
Yeah. You raised some good points.
But is that a presidential primary? And
It's a primary.
and the argument could be how many people vote in the primaries. The accusation is more people turn out for a general election than a primary.
Correct.
Wait,
Yeah, you know what, the person that knows more about the voter turnout is huddling right now to figure out a new date, but Cindy, voter turnout, the presidential primary in February versus general, do you have a knee-jerk reaction to that?
Well, it's going to be something else because, I mean, Republicans will come out in mass. The Democrats might come in mass to mess with the Republicans and switch parties or whatever just for the primary.
Get the weakest
It's,
one in.
you don't know. I mean, for the Obama, when he came out, we ran out of everything.
Right.
Because we did not anticipate how many people would show up for a primary, because historically, it was very low count.
Uh-huh.
If it's
I-
regarding 4 millage points, does that spark interest from the community?
I would think so,
Okay.
It would
because
spark
there would
my
be
interest.
a Republican ballot,
Well, that alone, I think, would
a
spark.
That would
Democratic
make me
ballot,
get out no
and then
matter
a
when it
proposal-only
went.
ballot.
And that's where I was going with it, you know, just the topic alone. But, like you said, I mean, you look at when Obama ran, I bet you guys did run out of
Yeah.
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
But I think, and maybe to his point is, I mean, timing is crucial, and if we miss anything along the way here, is anything that messes with us receiving the funds in 2025 is going to be, it's going to impact our budget in 2025.
One thing that Councilwoman O'Neill and I were chatting out before the meeting started, we were talking about the schedule, and Jeff, you're going to have Mary send out the schedule of meetings so that we can get them in calendars, but I mentioned that we have a special meeting on, turns out to be July 31st, And we got to have a quorum, and we got to have 4 votes for everything, so that's just, vacations and summer and all that have to be factored in here, so hopefully we will have 4 people here on that date.
That's kind of where I was going with it, because of the time, the season, I'm not trying to put a wrench in anything, you guys, I'm just,
Well, again, I'll do what council wants to do, because that's who I work for, and so I'm open. I just have to bring it because it's important to me, and it's important to the city, and that's where I sit.
Absolutely.
That's my fiduciary duty to you. I'm supposed to tell you when things are great, I'm supposed to tell you when things are not so great, and I'm supposed to keep you in the
appreciate
loop,
that.
and that's all I'm trying to do. And so, whatever the decision may be, we'll go with it. And, in fairness, if you ask me today, well, what's an information budget look like? I can't even tell you. I mean, I got some idea, but I want to vet it, I want to see what we need to do, and it's very important to me, so we can't do it alone, and
Well, Randy's itching to say something.
Yeah, I am. We're on this track, and, we just passed a resolution that Cindy pointed out, the very last line has July 10th in it. What I would ask the council to do is give some grace and allow that wording to be changed from July 10th to a date to be set by the city clerk in accordance with the legal requirements, and we will do our best to make sure it happened. This could go off the rails because of the tight deadline we're on, but at least let's give staff the time to look at it, see if there's a way to double track or double up on any of our meetings, and take 2 actions instead of 1. So let us have that latitude. And then as far as the broader question that Councilman Norton raises, we really ought to be making sure everybody's calendar coincides with the schedule we put out, because if it doesn't, then we either...
it doesn't work.
It comes off the rails, or we pick different dates. I don't know where else you can go with that.
Yeah.
And if you're also out publicizing, like we wanted to do a campaign to publicize the special assessment with the police and whatever, you have more time to work that in too, if we do February.
Well, and we have to. I mean, it can't be just a postcard.
Thrown together.
A postcard. It's got to be a professional campaign where everybody's in, and did you know, and
exactly what Cindy said is where I'm coming from. I mean, it's very,
Well-
very important. You've made that quite clear.
well, let's do, I agree with Randy. Let's put it down that way, and then let's take a look at it and see how it all works. Maybe it won't even flush out with the dates and times, and
Then if it doesn't, it doesn't, then we
Yep.
do for
Then
February.
can
yeah.
you back up?
But what we could do is keep, put it in a motion that we could keep it alive. We don't want it to die
Yeah.
for a future date somehow.
Staff will work all together to get
Yep.
it as
Just
best
so
we
it
can.
doesn't die, no
Good.
matter when it is, because it's something that we got to
Well,
discuss.
Yeah, it's going
100%.
All right.
I just
Randy.
need people to consent to change the
To
wording
be
from July
determined
10th.
is good.
Okay.
Yep.
So-
Got
Yes.
consent on that?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. July 10th.
To
Or-
a date to be set by
Okay.
the city clerk in accordance with the
Okay.
legal requirements for the millage process.
Okay.
Because we even got the holiday, I mean, I don't think they're gonna make people work on the holiday to get it out either, so it's
Yeah.
like another day added.
Okay.
Do they get 2 days off for
we
mail?
have a motion
Monday
on
and
that?
TDA is
No,
November.
just,
Do we have a motion on that? Or?
You already
That's
approved
what
it.
Okay,
That's when
all
I
right,
left.
okay.
I think it's up to Linda.
And we're adjourned
Money
at
over.
7:40.
motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Yep.
adjourn, sorry.
Well, that's
I
just
thought it was a
what
study
it all-
session.
Okay.
Is there a
All
motion
that money in
from
that
Councilwoman
account.
Blanchett?
Because then it wasn't coming back
Supported
in.
by
Support.
Councilwoman Benata. Any discussion? Roll call.
Holy cow.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Robbins.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Blanchett.
Yes.
Councilmember Benata.
Yes.
Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
No, but it's
Meeting adjourned
but it's
at
burnt-
Completed.
yeah, from 18
7:42.
to now, it's not.